Hi, world. Taylor here. I said I was going to be back. Here I am. I wish I was going to come back with just something more fun, more casual to talk about, but this is an opportunity to provide a bit of a life in times as to what's been happening over the last few months, and I also would like to use this video as a mechanism to raise awareness, just because of some aforementioned, or some soon to be mentioned, I should say, situations. Most of the people who would end up seeing this are likely people who follow me on Twitter, as I will be posting this on there later. So you already know the backstory. If you don't, my name is Taylor. I am a 39-year-old trans woman. I live in Winnipeg, and I would like to consider myself a rather fierce advocate for trans rights, trans visibility, trans inclusion, trans diversity, and just cut the bullshit type of stuff, right? Like kind of see what things are and call them as they is. And again, to carry on with that, I've been a strong advocate of a situation that happened in Winnipeg at the end of August, where a local radio station that was originally known and represented itself as an ally, for example, a strong media ally to our LGBTQ plus community, ended up making some hiring decisions with a radio host that is controversial to those values, and I actually explained a lot of that in my past video, which was 5 hours long. Anybody who made it through, thank you for doing that. I didn't expect that to happen at all, but whatever, it is what it is. The bottom line, though, is I've been an individual, one of many people in our community who would continue to hold that radio station accountable for its values. Not to say that they can't do whatever they want. I want to be fundamentally clear about that. The challenge is that when they created that hire, they advertised this concept of continuing to be one of the strongest media allies in the city. The problem with that is, especially in our generation as it is, right, in 2020, allies is an incredibly powerful word, especially to the people who need it, right? For people who don't understand what allyship is and spit it out as if it's a feel-good word, only hurts it, right? There's a huge difference between being friends and chums and buddies and supportive and allies. Right, and especially, again, that in 2020, and it's December 2020 right now, anybody who's made it through the year knows what it's been like so far, but overall, it's a social global crisis, or global social crisis, whatever. Anyway, the world's falling apart no matter what way you look at it. And so because of that, it's really important to stay true to the things that you say. And so by offering allyship without representing the values of allyship, is dangerous. It's dangerous for younger people who don't have somebody yet, right, to go to, or if they're trying to identify with themselves, right, being a minority or thinking you might be in a minority group, right, to have somebody to go to in a safe place, right, so that they can feel comfortable and be able to allow themselves to finally be themselves. And that's one of the things I would be holding that radio station accountable for, because by calling themselves the strongest, or like to continue being strong media allies, whatever was it that the official statement said, right? And hiring somebody who is, as like for all intents and purposes, an unapologetic transphobe who got fired, pardon me, from his last job 2 odd years ago for transphobic comments, without following up with an apology. Like I said, that becomes a very dangerous situation, because that's representing privilege, right, instead of allyship. Because realistically, that radio host ends up to, you know, sure, he paid his dues and everything else that you want to say, but what about the people who have been spat on? What about the people, the community who feels unsafe because of the demographic that's spoken to about that believe the message, right? It's great that the individual, right, paid his dues and he's got his penance and he feels sorry and all that other type of stuff, but doesn't say it. That doesn't matter. The community ends up getting hurt. Multiple people got hurt. Many people feel unsafe. Many people are unsure about their future because the message spoken on a public platform, even though it's by a private entity, right? But to have the opportunity and the privilege, right, to speak to a public platform and get that message into ears that trans individuals are weird or pretending or wrong or different or dogs, right? Like, it doesn't work like that. I've said numerous times, and I said it in my last video just in itself, talking about forgiveness, everybody deserves forgiveness. There's no question on that. Everybody does deserve forgiveness, but to earn forgiveness, you need to represent guilt. Some people will be automatically forgiving, right? And that's a them thing. But fundamentally, how forgiveness works is you need to represent guilt and sorrow and say, I screwed up. I'm sorry. What can I do to make up for it? And then the atonement happens, and then the people who have been injured, right, or victimized or hurt or abused or whatever, and this goes across the board for anything, but then it's those people to go ahead and say, I hear your sorrow. I forgive you. That doesn't necessarily mean that everything's okie dokie, right? But forgiveness means that it's okay. We've moved on. And the expectation for forgiveness to happen without the, oh, I oopsed, right, and make up for it, hasn't happened. So I've been a large advocate about that, and it's because I want to make sure that the message for the next generation of kids growing up realize that you don't need to just get punched on and be told by somebody else you have to deal with it. That's why the world is the way that it is, right? If you go ahead and you get injured, right, and by injured I mean like whether it's an emotional injury, right, if you get hurt, right? If you just get hurt emotionally or you're struggling mentally because of a situation and someone else just says, too bad, deal with it, even though they're a cause for it, that doesn't help, right? And so again, right, the advocacy that I'm going after is to make sure that the people who cause some of those frustrations at least recognize it. Because there's two ways to go to it. There's always a possibility for misinterpretation. Everyone has to be responsible for their own feelings, but fundamentally, when somebody does a big oops, right, that person owes it to somebody else to acknowledge that they oopsed, right, and carry on. So anyway, over the period of time, I've been strongly advocating with and pretty much holding the radio station accountable and raising awareness to a lot of individuals, such as their business partners, of the situation. Most people have a rough idea, and if they don't, it's a reminder. I was like, this is the message that is being represented by your brand. You can interpret it in a different way, but very, very simply, they're snowballing a community that they offered a commitment to. A long time ago, one of the biggest things that I said about the situation was it would have been advantageous for the radio station Energy 106 FM in Winnipeg, their official statement, instead of saying that they're going to continue being the strongest media allies, just call a duck, that they want to go ahead and they want to hire a controversial shock jock, right, who they feel has earned an opportunity to get back on the radio, but because of that, the values would not be aligned with what allyship is. The values would not be in line with what would be considered safe for the LGBTQ plus community, right, and because of that, they would like to just draw attention to disassociate, to go ahead and say that we understand that the decisions we make aren't in your best interest, and so it's safest for everybody if we detach, if we don't call ourselves LGBTQ plus allies. We will still go, you're more than welcome to continue to listen. We thank you for your patronage, and we love you for that. But we just want to make sure that it's clear that we don't want to put everything together like that. And that would have been cool. That would have been honest. It would have been weird considering the time that it was done. But at least it would have said, we know what we're doing and we don't want to hurt you. Instead, they go ahead and they try to throw a smokescreen about things. And, well, here we are. So part of the reason why I'm pretty passionate about this is because it's one of the many steps that I'm trying to do about just trans rights in general, where before I started working on everything with energy, one of my biggest projects that I've been trying to pay attention to the most is about sports, as a matter of fact, largely because sports is it's a massive social construct overall, right? Society benefits on sports in multiple ways, and individuals benefit on sports too. Whether you look at the bonding nature of things, the internal competitiveness, the ability to go ahead and identify your skills, you can go ahead and generate social relationships. We can go on and on and on about what sports does for a community, not even counting the business side, right? But with that I've been doing the best that I can to stay in contact with some local sports organizations to reform some of the policies. This isn't COVID, by the way. It's every time I wear a foundation, I get a little bit of a runny nose. Just fully aware. It's December 2020. I have to acknowledge that my nose is whatever. It's not COVID. It's foundation since whenever I I don't know, 39 years ago or whenever it was that I started messing around like this. But anyway, when it comes to sports, that to reestablish the place where trans individuals are able to participate safely, right? Or not even just safely, but to be represented fairly, or acknowledged, or call it however you want, because it's still, in today's day and age, a very common expectation that if you're signing up for a sport, you see male and female, it's instantly assumed as a biological sex. And the challenge with that is gender is pretty fluid, right? And the problem with that is a lot of the terms are interchanged, and so it becomes rather open and then controversial when it's opinions instead of something rather specifically dictated. So with sports, that if we can we'll just reword policies very simply, right? To go ahead and be clear on things like registration forms, insurance forms, that the divisions are based on gender expression, gender identity. It's clear. It's very clear. It's in stone, and then it does so many extra benefits, such as introduces the conversation sooner, right? If you can think, right, you're putting your kid in U6 soccer, right, and you're sitting at the dinner table, and then they say to you, "It's like I don't want to be in boys soccer," and then you go, "What? Why?" And that child has the bravery to say, "It's like I don't feel like I belong." Just think about what that does by creating that door, by creating the door. Because there's so much expectation for a child to generate that bravery. But it's a kid. Gotta think about that, right? So to give the opportunity for people to go ahead and allow themselves to be more open. It also ends controversy sooner, right? Because now it's on paper, it's in stone. Guess what? Too bad. You don't like it? Too bad. In my last video, I explained a lot, actually, about fundamentally how it's able to operate when it comes to taxes and Bill C-16. I'm not going to repeat it, but still, it ends the controversy sooner, right? And then by doing that, it also improves our demographics, right? Because then you're going to go get a more accurate idea about how many people truly are trans. General rough numbers, about 0.5% of Canadians and Americans. I think it's 0.6% of Americans. So nonetheless, so let's say 1 in every 200 people, at least in the Western world that you meet, is trans, right? And that's only known by who actually goes through, whether it's medical processes, police records, or I really wouldn't know any other reasons I would get there, right? But to go ahead and get some type of survey with that. But nonetheless, right? Like, yeah, because I'm thinking, okay, you got violent crime when you find out the hard way if an individual is trans or not. Doctor's records, as I said, for anyone who's transitioning. Yeah, no, anyway, that's kind of it, I suppose. But anyway, to the point, though, where to get appropriate information, it just improves society overall, right? You're going to get a more accurate thumbprint on what the world is around you. You're going to go ahead and have better information to give to the health system, right? For mental health systems, for education systems, for social services systems. I can go on and on and on and on, right? Of the values that come by having a more accurate demographic of the people who actually live in the land. It's not really a surprise. So overall, though, the benefit of doing all that, and one of the reasons why I'm trying to work with sports, is to normalize the conversation, to normalize being trans, to just normalize the visibility of it. And even when it comes to the sports, like I said, you go ahead and you put your kid in U6, U8 soccer, right? You go ahead and put them in U12 volleyball, right? Or you go ahead and you sign up for slow pitch or whatever it's going to be, right? By seeing the words they're explaining, at least entertains the visibility of it. So it's not so much of an abstract to what we've already decided as a social construct. There's no negatives out of it. Like I said in a past life, many times on Twitter and I'm fully aware that there are some sports and some levels of all sports that need to be reviewed a little closer, whether it's the competitiveness, right, or player safety is one of the biggest ones that I can think of, especially if you're looking at things like weight classes, and then also considering at the time when one transitions or not, because depending if they're, going from MTF or MTX, right, or vice versa, right, there are things, and especially, like I said, at the super elite level of things, I can understand the conversation somewhat, but nonetheless, if it's able to at least be introduced at an earlier age, that just generates a better platform going forward, period. So same thing with energy, right? The reason why I'm working on energy as much as I have been is to, again, the next generation, or just the fact that energy's demographic is low 20s to, high 30s, right? Low 40s, whatever it's going to be, even older now, right? I suppose. But with that there is such an impressionable demographic in that, or an impressionable age group in that demographic, that the message needs to be clear and the message needs to represent safety. Because otherwise, I want to have a white man joke, but I can't think of it right now. But it's unsafe. It's unsafe to go ahead and be a radio station that announces yourself as one of the strongest media allies in the city and hire an individual who is known for not being in line with that. And that's the challenge. And so, like I said, in many times, many places, that's a representation of an abuse of privilege, right? Because people have been punched down on and they've been hurt and they're told that, hey, guess what? Too bad. And the people who embrace privilege and don't understand what it's like continue to cheer it on. That is why the world continues to be as it is. And this radio station has a responsibility to be a model corporate citizen. They can do whatever they want. There's no question about that. And I'm not saying that they can't. But the fact that they are is, it's just an abuse of an incredibly strong word. The word allies is so meaningful in this generation to people who need allyship. Right? For the young people who are trying to identify with themselves, for the young people who are trying to feel safe, for the young people who don't know how to connect to, for the young people who don't have anybody relatable, for the young people who don't have a role model, for the young people who feel shunned 24/7, except for that little period of time that they're in the car driving to work, so that they can tune in and hear somebody they respect. And more importantly, that person respects them. That's why I advocate. That's why I'm strong on it. Because there is a generation coming up and a generation beneath that coming up that is going to continue to get the wrong message because of a lie. Because this is not the strongest media allies, especially considering that, especially with the stuff coming up as of late, they've done nothing but turn around and run. They have not addressed the scenario. "20 minutes in, I'm just going to recap. My name is Taylor, right? I'm a 39-year-old trans woman, and I have been a victim of, I hate saying it because I'm 39, but overall, let's just call it what it is. It's cyberbullying, and this is another topic that I'm going to be including in my projects, right, of things that I plan to do. When I came out abruptly to educate, to raise awareness of diversity, inclusion, equity, and just overall trans visibility. And because of the recent elements in life, I'm going to be advocating against cyberbullying, because cyberbullying can kill people. Cyberbullying as an element is not deadly. The byproduct of cyberbullying, because of its agenda, can cause situations for the victim to commit suicide. And it's frustrating that it has infected our community, and it feels like it's not being taken as seriously as it should. Because, unfortunately, the only time people will draw attention to it is after somebody decides to end their life. I've been a target of the cyberbullying because of my advocacy, and it has been rather relentless, and I'll explain a little more about how wild it got soon. But it was near the end of September, essentially, when things started to get a little interesting, right? Just save the nonsense behind it, right? That I've got a blog that you're more than welcome to catch up. I don't know, I'll put it in the comments or something like that, or the describe whatever. Anyway, I'll just put a blog link in there just because, just in case you don't know. But it's pretty much just a Cole's notes of getting everything out, plus a little chit chat about sports and blah blah blah. Pack a lunch. It's not brief. But anyway, near the end of September is where things started to happen. One of the challenges that I noticed with the, especially when it started, was that the users, and at the time it was at least one that I noticed, but it would just be typical, I don't know, just being a dork, whatever. But in the name of Energy 106 and the morning show. And then as it would continue, and it didn't take very long, I think it was in early October, as a matter of fact, that again, this individual decided to just find one of my posts, right? Because they, they weren't invited to it or anything like that. They weren't mentioned or whatever. So they're creeping and looking. Essentially, they're looking for, me. And again, right, to just use whatever, just be whatever. And again, right, this was an opportunity for Energy 106 to step in and say, just essentially denounce it. Right, because like, hey, say whatever you want, but don't do it while waving our brand, because screw off with that, right? Like, you'd think any brand in its right mind would immediately denounce an abusive and harassment type of behavior while their brand is being waved. Long story short, that never happened, right? That I've had numerous conversations with the program director and one of the producers, Adam West and Tyler Carr. And actually a few other people at the station as well when I went down for a few a few meetings. Then we talked about it, and then every single time, of course, I was like, oh yeah, no, I'll take care of it, whatever, right? And I'm like, okay, so, right, you're aware, and, okay, get on it. Like, they're making your brand look dumb, dude. Just slap it down. That's all you gotta do, because, Tyler had and again, my last video was actually a response video to a podcast that he did that was promoted by Energy 106, on at least their Twitter platform. I know it was on their website too. I'm going to assume it was on their Facebook page and Instagram, I'm assuming, right? But I know at the minimum it was on their site and their Twitter. But, Tyler's like, oh, yeah, no, we encourage people to go ahead and share their feelings, and they can petition however they want, or so on and so on, as long as people are, not unsafe to the others and so on. So whatever, right? You would think that they would say the same thing, right? It was like, hey, Taylor and the community are more than welcome to go ahead and share their thoughts and feelings on our hire, and we would appreciate it if you don't say these things, right, while waving our brand, right? Like, that's the most important part, that it's continuing to be abusive while representing the brand, right? That's just weird. It's weird. Not so weird, really, when you realize what's actually going on, which is kind of what I expected, but I'll get to that later. So anyway, like I said, it would just continue, and it would continue, and it would continue, and then it would escalate, and then it would get more, and then there would be more people, and then it would carry on. And I saw the whole thing coming from day one, because that's what cyberbullying is. Cyberbullying is a group of people who've never been hugged before that are trying to eliminate people on the planet so they don't have to worry about getting a hug because no one else is there. Cyberbullying is a dopamine release for somebody who doesn't understand how to manage their own feelings because they're getting a reaction from others to give them the validation that they never got in their own life. Cyberbullying is an expression of depression. And what they're trying to do is go ahead and exhibit a dominant behavior on somebody that's even more depressed so that they can reign supreme, so they can be the confident ones. They can be the ones that say, hey, I won. They picked the wrong person. When I came out with a purpose, to educate, to advocate. And through a series of events over the summer, I have done nothing except get stronger and stronger and stronger. You can't break me. I know my weaknesses, and I know how to manage them, and my strengths. Anybody who's seen me, I've barely even gotten started. The cyberbullying has gotten to the point where I especially escalated things after they decided to go older into, I'm going to assume, right, that they dug deeper into my Twitter life, and they found my old name, Brad. And to roll back on that, dead naming, if you're not familiar, dead naming essentially is one of two things. It is generally a dismissal of somebody. It's a transphobic thing to do, fundamentally, but it's a dismissal of a person's identity, to say, I don't care who you say you are this to me. Or what dead naming is also, it's pretty much a way to say that we know who you were, right? You can't run, right? Type of stuff. Fundamentally, it's a psychological attack, right? Whether it's active or passive. And unfortunately, cyberbullying, or pardon me, dead naming, to some trans individuals can be a death sentence. For trans people to be able to select their own name reduces the risk of suicide by about, I think it's 29%. It's just less than 30%. It's like 27 or 29 or whatever. But anyway, let's just say up to 30%, right? Suicide risk loss, or suicide, yes, yeah. You have to think that if it's up to 30% less, that's a big number to start with. And in case you didn't know, the number, depending on the demographic, is 44. And to go even further, that from suicides, right, up to 44% depending on the demographic, it's just over 60% or just less than 70 or something like that have thought about it. And I've said it in the last video and I'll say it again, I'm one of them. Not necessarily actively, but if I was crossing the street, even though I looked both ways and a bus ran me over, just make it count. Right? Like in a past life where I had nothing. Right? So just whatever, finish me off, I don't care. So I was one of those. The bottom line though is when a trans individual gets to have their own name, to reduce the risk of suicide by up to 30% is absolutely massive. So for somebody to go back and try to drag that back into their life, it's like handing a noose to some trans individuals. And then at the same time, these individuals decided to go even further. And here's where things got exceptionally real. Because it's very clear that they are obsessed with me. And to that, I am flattered. I will explain more later. But to try to associate my name to porn sites. Right? Splash a little defamation in there. Why the hell not? Especially considering I'm trying to visibly adjust some policies. Now, I want to specifically say, sex work is work, and if you're in the industry, knock yourself out, and I hope you do the best. Personally, I'm kind of old school. You got to get to know me before you see me, right? But even with that, the way that the internet works when it comes to porn sites, first off, being a trans person, I know that I'm part of a fetishized community. There's no question that over the period of time, over the last couple decades, I just had pictures of, me, right, or whatever, on just sites, because it's just a place to connect, right, whatever it would end up being, but just to feel like I exist somewhere. But lots of porn websites, the way that they operate is web crawlers, right, or however you call them, pretty much bots to go ahead and scoop pictures up. And they would scoop the picture up with some profile information and this and that, and they would go ahead and they would dump them on some really rudimentary websites off in the middle of space, right? And who really cares how they look, because you're going to end up finding individuals who would log on to those websites or Google away and try to figure out those sites to log on. The host really doesn't care about the performance of the website, and really the end user is just going to carry off frustrated anyway, but the host of the website is still going to get paid because the user ended up logging onto that site, and they're going to generate revenue because of an ad banner click, right? Or at least a ad banner activation. So that's just how porn sites work. I think it's like a multi-billion-dollar industry. So with that being said, right, so of course you go ahead and you look hard enough on Google, you're going to find my name, right, attached to porn sites, because that's the way the internet works when you're part of a fetishized culture. What would you do? Right? So again, right, two elements of things that are trying to go ahead and trust me. Oh, I should roll back on the name, but I'll get on that in 2 seconds. Right? But again, that trying to affiliate someone to a porn site as if it's an element of shame, right, is another opportunity for a death sentence for a trans individual, right? Again, you're looking at trying to mentally diminish their value. You're trying to cause mental trauma. There could be trans individuals on porn sites and they need to be there because they don't have the funds otherwise to go ahead and continue transitioning depending on where they live. Or just their status of life. Maybe they just like it. Knock yourself out. Right? If you're good at it, knock yourself out. What would you do? So that being said, going back to the name bit, my profile, when I transitioned, right, and especially when I socially transitioned, I changed a lot of my profiles from Brad to Taylor, specifically for visibility. Lots of trans individuals, like I mentioned, how they'll shed a name, right, will create a new life, right, whether it'll be a new Twitter profile or whatever else it may be, and delete the old one because they want to get rid of everything. I'm the other way around. I have no shame of my history. I know who I've been, and I wouldn't be here unless I was who I was. And I'm proud of that. And because of that, I had no problem changing that profile over. And then also because of that too, that it allows the opportunity for some visibility, right? Because even though I came out, and when I came out to my workplace and some sports leagues that I participate in, but it's not like I spread a message to the entire planet or texted everybody all at once. And so if somebody logged on to Twitter, for example, and for whatever reason, right, they're like, seeing in their followers or friends list or whatever it be, they're like, where the hell's Brad? Who the hell is Taylor? And then maybe they put two and two together, right? And it's simple as that, right? To create that visibility of like, holy shit, those things I said to Brad at the time were not cool. That was the point of me coming out as abruptly as I did, so that I can really generate an awakening for some individuals to realize they have to be mindful about the things they say and the things they do, because not everyone around you is the same as you. Simple as that. So anyway, like I said, trying to dead name me and trying to affiliate me to a porn site. And because of that, I ended up forwarding that to Adam and Tyler, right, from Energy 106, be like, these are the same people waving your banner, you better do something about this. Right? And again, nothing, right? Like, it's a neutral response or something. I can't exactly remember what it was. But the bottom line is I do remember having a few meetings with them. And again, it was just an acknowledgement that this situation exists. And I was like, oh, I'll take care of it, right? Okie doke, whatever. And didn't. So anyway, time carries on. It gets more and more and more. And because I knew that these people were now very interested in smashing Google to try to figure everything else about me, now things are getting real. And this is the part that I was trying to raise the most awareness of. And if there's anybody from the media, right, who's watching this, this is the message that I've been trying to say. Everyone continues to look at this as if it's a trans LGBTQ plus narrative versus energy. This is far beyond that. There are individuals who have this drive to ruin someone else's life. That is cyberbullying. This is no partisanship. This is no narrative about, oh, I'm not really interested in the queer community, so I better stay out. Because I want you to think about this. What if this was your kid? What if this was some 14-year-old of yours who can't escape other people's obsession and doesn't have the tools to do anything about it? They don't have the courage to bring it up. They don't have the confidence to deal with things. Think if it was your kid. Would you matter then? Or would it matter then? Would you care? Think about that. Cyberbullying has one agenda. Abuse a victim to submission. And sometimes that submission is suicide. These people go after me, and I let it continue to happen because I'm able to take it. Our community has this toxic threat enabled in it because of inactivity by a radio station that these individuals were advocating in favor of while waving their brand. And this radio station was asked numerous times by numerous people in numerous ways to step up and do something about it, and they refused. Cyberbullying doesn't stop and start. cyberbullying carries on and will continue to prey on on whatever region they choose to be in until they deem themselves satisfied. Not beat, satisfied. They will continue to go on and on and on until they get their fill. They're looking for their dopamine. They're looking for someone to react. They're looking for someone to validate them by invalidating others. That is cyberbullying. And then let's add the stalking, right? Remember I talked about Google, right? So that goes back to what I was saying earlier, that now I know that these people are very clearly interested in smashing my name into whatever search engine, right, as often as they want, because who knows what they're trying to do. I shouldn't say who knows what they're trying to do. They're trying to ruin my life. But I would let it continue to happen because I can handle it. I've got the tools to do that. And my fear is that they will go after someone who doesn't. Fast forward a little bit, I intentionally stayed offline just for a small period of time for two reasons. I was doing a lot of work anyway, because work, right? And two, I wanted to see what their behavior was. I wanted to see how predictable it would be, and it's exactly as I expected, right? Where they started to unblock people they've blocked previously so that they can start to harass them because they realize they can't get me to bite. Rolling back a little bit, what ended up happening aside from the dead naming, right? And I called energy out on it about enabling cyberbullying, and again, no answer, right? Even to the point where now it looks like Tyler deleted his Facebook, or not Facebook, pardon me, at least his Twitter profile, which is kind of unfortunate because if you look at my last video, right, the very first thing I did for him, right, was actually step up and denounce death threats that have been performed against me. Hey, what do I know? Right? That's just petty thinking about that. But you'd think it'd be interesting because some of these individuals that are going after me, someone flashed a knife, right? Interpret that however you want. Is that a threat? If somebody goes ahead and sends you an image or a GIF or a GIF, depending on where you're coming from, right? If somebody flashing a knife, how do you interpret that? Is that a threat? How do you find out the hard way if you interpreted it wrong? Right? What if you think it's not a threat and it turns out it was? Whose fault is that? These are examples of cyberbullying. Right, to go ahead and try to inflict a mental trauma on things. The amount of people who have reached out to me saying they're scared is frustrating. And this goes back to why our community failed, and not the community with me, but our media, our politicians, to not recognize that a corporate citizen in our own town has enabled this and not recognizing the toxicity that comes with it and the scope that comes with it and the damage that can come with it. Are you going to care after somebody kills themselves? Are you even going to know if somebody kills themselves because of this? It's frustrating. So going to frustrating things as well, because I'm not giving anybody to bite with, right, when it comes to these individuals, they decided to go even farther. They decided to go farther and farther and farther back and actually pull up my last name now. Lenz. Or not my last name now, right? But nonetheless, Bradley Lenz. For extra fun, these users decided to start trying to affiliate me with somebody in Edmonton, Bradley Jeffrey Lenz, which is not my middle name. It was not my middle name. Anyway. Regardless, to affiliate me with somebody who's, if I remember off the top of my head, I just better Google this really fast so I don't say the wrong things on video. Bradley Jeffrey Lenz. I don't want to say charged or convicted without using the right word. Man charged. I'll just say charged just to be safe. Yeah, Edmonton man arrested after printing portion of, yeah. So I'll say charged because I'm not going to look too deep into it. But anyway, the bottom line, arrested after printing a portion of his massive collection of child porn at a self-serve superstore photo kiosk, da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And especially interesting, too, considering the date of the article in 2015, it was a different age as me too. So nonetheless, though, that these individuals are attempting to defame me by attaching my name, first and last name, right, or the last... You do it. Anyone who's ever changed their name before, you know where I'm going with things. but anyway, to go ahead and try to affiliate me to somebody who was arrested for possession of child porn. And that's where I drew the line. So I reached out to local Winnipeg, or to our police, Winnipeg Police. Ended up having an overnight chit-chat. Not last night, so the night previous to that. So we could put that on the trans bingo card, right? Overnight visit when you are wearing super oversized pajamas and you look like a sack of hammers. Certainly wasn't expecting that one at like 12:30 or whatever, but it is what it is. Had a couple hours chit chat with them, and they're going to well, obviously be taking the next steps. I'm to be hearing from the officer in, I believe it's going to be, it'll either be tomorrow or Monday, I think it is, to follow up. They're trying to figure out what the right division is to go after this, because of course I'm going to be escalating that, and I am more than interested in taking it to every angle of the law possible, because you don't do that. You don't do that. But yeah, so that again, right, is cyberbullying, right? You got these people who are going ahead and trying to ruin someone else's life. Because they can. Because they hide behind anonymity. And would energy do anything about it? Absolutely not. And so because of that, I'm actually also pursuing a human rights complaint, I guess is what it is. I'm playing phone tag right now, but I am exploring that, and I'm trying to figure out if that's going to be just against energy directly, if it's going to be from any individuals in energy, or if it's going to be for the Evanoff Radio Group for enabling it. Because bottom line, though, is it has been enabled because they could have stopped it. They could have stepped on it. And the reason why they didn't, and again, this is, purely speculation, but I can't imagine how it's not accurate, is the radio host that they hired, Dave Wheeler, I believe still has an open case of wrongful dismissal against Rogers, which was the previous company he worked for that terminated him for transphobic comments. And he sued him for the tune of $1.4 million, and I think plus a little more this and that. But the bottom line is that if Dave apologizes, that's going to wreck his case now, won't it? Why would he have a case for wrongful dismissal and in between then and now go ahead and apologize for the things that he said? Right? And because of that, it seems rather interesting that all of a sudden, going from this engaging conversation that I had with Adam and Tyler, which was during a period of time that I had an open case with CBSC regarding their situation, right? As soon as their general consultant emailed me back pretty much saying, no, everything's fine, carry on, coincidentally enough, Adam and Tyler also decided to stop communicating as well. There's a $1.4 million bounty essentially on our community. Our community has essentially been valued at less than $1.4 million so that Dave Wheeler can go ahead and get his paycheck, even if he wins. Isn't that sick? I'd love to hear that I'm wrong. I'd love to hear that it's some other reason why there's no communication, but I can't imagine any logical reason why a business would allow this type of abuse, stalking, harassment, doxing? Oof, doxing. Lots of doxing. Lots of doxing. Multiple people as well. Defamation, libel. But seriously, I can carry on. It's a real thing. To allow those things while their brand is being promoted. And what's frustrating out of that is a long time ago, middle of October, I believe. I think it was October 19th, October 20th, something like that. Like, I literally gave words for energy to use that would have denounced the behavior without affirming a stance on anything else. The words essentially said, we're having conversation with our community, or we're having open conversation or listening or something like that with the community, and we don't condone abuse and harassment with our brand attached, whatever it was, something along those lines. The bottom line is I gave the words to say so that they didn't commit to anything and tell these individuals to piss off. But they chose not to use it. It just said, we appreciate everyone's values, please be kind, or something like that. Be kind. I can't even hear the words be kind anymore without thinking about it. And needless to say, our community didn't appreciate that either, considering how kind their morning show host was before he got hired on Energy. It's weird how that system works. It's weird how a lot of the systems work. So anyway, those are all things I talked about in my last video there. It's in my blog and blah, blah, blah. So yeah, so things are a little real now. Just wanted to give a life and times update with that. Like I said, I got a hold of the police. I'm frustrated. I'd be lying if I said I wasn't. Because there's other people's safety now. Some of these individuals are a little wild. Some of these individuals are just not firing on all cylinders. And if they are, they're not firing in sequence. Right? Like they're just... and it represents why it's important to normalize trans individuals in life, because it's fundamentally unsafe. Personally, I'm at peace with everything. A lot of people have asked me how I'm able to go ahead and cope with this, and it's pretty simple. Really simple, as a matter of fact. This was enabled by a radio station that I was advocating values against, or pardon me, I was advocating that their values represented, or their stated values were very different than their performed values. Right? And going back to what I was saying about the message that's being sent, about being a safe space, and so on and so on and so on. Our community knows this too. I am absolutely not the only person who knows this. I'm not the only person who's raised awareness about this. So how am I okay? Because I can't get hurt. My message when I came out was to educate, to raise awareness and visibility for equality and an elimination of transphobia. And this radio station is allowing things to happen that represent exactly what I've been advocating against. So regardless of what happens to me, from those moments forward till the end of my life, anything negative can go directly to that radio station. Anything that's an interruption or an obstacle can go directly to that radio station because they enabled this type of behavior. Instead of being allies and denouncing that, they were silent. And in situations like this, silence is not an option. Silence is acceptance of it. Silence is encouraging it. Silence doesn't do anything to stop it. Silence says this is okay. So no matter what happens to me, literally or metaphorically, that's blood on Energy 106 FM's hands. That's blood on Adam's hands. That's blood on Dave's hands. That's blood on Tyler's hands. That's blood on Paul Evanov's hands. That's blood on the hands of every individual who works in that building or has any awareness of the situation. Anything and everything negative that will happen to me from when this started all the way until the end of my life, right, will be connected to this situation where they had an opportunity to go ahead and stand up and denounce things, to go ahead and represent allyship. And instead, what they're doing is repeating my message. They're repeating my message that this world is unkind fundamentally to trans individuals, that this world is unkind, right, to giving the opportunity for trans people to be valid and safe. This world is unkind to recognizing that trans people are people too, just like everyone else. I also know I'm okay because, like I said, do you not think that there was no point in my life that I never knew about this Bradley Jeffrey Lenz guy? Who doesn't Google their name? Like, seriously. Unbelievable. I know where I've been, and I know my history. I know what I've done. I know what I'm doing. And I know what I'm working towards. I know my life better than anyone else thinks they do. And I have no shame in my life. When I was younger, I was ashamed of my future because I had no idea how I was supposed to fit in. But I decided that it's not right for me to try to fit in. It was better for me to tell people to make room. And here I am. So for anybody who thinks they can go ahead and stop me from doing what I'm trying to do, I'm not even trying, I'm doing. Give it up. Nothing but a stepping stone. I will walk on top of every single obstacle. And any objection that I get, especially related to this incident, is not a me thing. It'll never be a me thing, ever. It's what I've been advocating against. There is no point that I'll ever look at myself saying I did something wrong. Because I know who I am, I know what I'm doing, and I know what I'm finishing. Every single thing that tries to get put against me only makes that radio station look worse. Because everybody knows, or everybody who knows, whatever. And it wouldn't be silent. I have a community of people who'd be happy to stand up with me. And I would have no question to assume that exact same community would stand up for me. That's why I'm okay. That's why I'm as bulletproof as I say I am. Because anything coming at me is not about me. It's about the goofs being goofs. And so these people decide to go ahead and try to prey on somebody who can't handle it. Which is why they've moved on to other people. Which is why I wish our media and our politicians would have recognized this when I was saying it a long time ago. And this is why I let the punches come my way, because I can take it. But there are people out there who can't. And this is why I advocate. This is what I advocate for. This is what I advocate for when it comes to trans rights. And this is what I'm raising awareness for when it comes to cyberbullying. Cyberbullying has infected our community. This isn't just one individual that's come into party and waiting to move on. Now all of a sudden there's more people, and that is how the system operates. And I'm frustrated that it's been enabled that far. Personally, I'm going to continue advocating, and I'm actually going to be reaching out to many places. I've got a very long list of, well, let's put it this way. I've got organizations, resources, advocates, support services, and media, I think both in print and, I can't remember what that link is. Anyway, I got all that, and I'm going to be referencing those, and I'll be doubling those up too, because I originally was just going to be reaching out for LGBTQ plus awareness. Originally, and then, like I said, things got a little real, so I'm going to be doing the same effort when it comes to cyberbullying, because I have no problem raising awareness about the scenario. I said numerous times that I will be making an example out of this. Because if you try to double-cross me, wrong person. And if you try to tell me I can't do something, exceptionally wrong person. I said I'll be sending a message with this. And this message is going to ripple around the globe. This will be an example. Transphobia is not okay. Cyberbullying is not okay. And abusing your privilege instead of utilizing your privilege to create solutions is not good. An example will be made out of this. You have a commitment from me about that, and there's no way that I'm going to let anyone stop me. I'll be taking it at the personal level as far to the law as I can, and I won't stop. I have more than enough resources to work with on that. I'll be making an example out of it with the Human Rights Tribunal, I guess is what it's called. Like I said, I'm playing phone tag there, and I will make an example out of that. I'll be reaching out to organizations on every country on the planet as far as I'm concerned to raise awareness about this situation specifically. This could have been stopped a long time ago by doing the right thing. But very simply, if somebody wants to go ahead and put a price tag on my head, better be ready to pay. There's no way I'm going to let our community be unsafe like this. And I will raise as much awareness as possible until this is denounced and ended. Because it's not fair for somebody else to wonder where they're able to go for the rest of their life. It's not fair for somebody else to have to escape from their life because someone else wants to take it over. It's not fair for somebody to be the victim of someone else's inability to cope with themselves. And for those people who don't have the ability to cope with themselves, I'd love to give you some great words. I'd love to offer some sort of solution, but you know what? You can't reason with the unreasonable. I wake up every day for my community. Other people out there wake up for me. Who's really in control? Media, politicians, any other prominent voice, this is the time that you stand up and say, this is where we need to act. Because I want you to think what it's like if this was your child, your family member, your friend, your coworker. To think about what they're going through. To think about the mental exhaustion that some of these people handle by trying to figure out where they are safe. If they are safe. This is not a partisan issue. This is fundamentally criminal, and at no point should backs ever be put towards it. Anyone else who sees this, raise awareness. Raise awareness to every prominent voice that you know on every platform that you're able to reach. Send a message that cyberbullying is not okay. It's actually a federal offense. Provincial too, depending on where you're at. And then, whatever, states, blah, blah, blah. This is an opportunity to go ahead and create a fantastic solution and another step towards a much more equal world. Because the thing that's most important when I say equal, a lot of people will be happy to say, oh, no, equality is cool. Not recognizing that equality doesn't work if you're not willing to give up some of your privilege. If you don't give up some of your privilege to allow others to benefit, you're not saying equality. You're accepting an existence, and even then sometimes that's questionable, but you're still saying, I'm going to carry on ahead. You catch up. That's not equality. So this is an opportunity to create that. Thank you for watching this. I'm going to let it go. And I hope you have yourself a great evening.